This is going to be the final concluding part of my series on self-isolation. I haven't done it in a year. I don't do it at all anymore. I have no urge to. I understood why I had urges to begin with. And that's mainly what I want to talk about today. So personally, self-isolation started to become intriguing in middle school, where I started to understand how other people perceived me. Like many young people, I wanted to be what somebody usually considers as the best. I wanted to be attractive, be intelligent, be successful in whatever external measures you can, in grades at that time, I guess. Naturally, I was being introduced into a world that had these standards, and I chose to internalize those standards and put them upon myself as much as possible because I thought that was the best thing to do. That would have the highest likelihood of me being successful. If I put the highest standards on myself as I possibly could, then that means I would constantly try to live up to them. And inevitably, if I just kept on trying, then I would meet up to them one day. And when I was most aware of the fact that I didn't meet up to these standards at all, or I wasn't on track to meeting those standards, that I would have the biggest urges to self-isolate. So at the root of my self-isolation, I wanted to disappear and come back as a renewed person that I was proud of. It was never about other people. It was never about other people tiring me. It's not something like, oh, you're just introverted and you need more alone time and you are burnt out. It was never that. It was always, I am not proud of myself. I am insecure and I want to isolate from others until I am worthy of being in the presence of others again. So essentially, I was scared of being vulnerable. I was scared of other people knowing and being acutely aware that I had flaws. And my friends, the people that I would self-isolate from, they knew I had flaws. They knew troubles I had in my life. But I didn't want them to perceive me as unreliable or as a bad friend or somebody or something that would go against their perception of me, which was generally a productive, always had everything figured out, I can always come to her for advice type of person. And so whenever I felt that those standards that I had put upon myself were not being met, I just absolutely wanted to self-isolate until I felt like they were being met again. So it was always that the reasoning behind my self-isolation was I'm doing this for myself. I want to better myself. And this especially was almost rewarded by this pattern or this romanticization for business owners, especially and entrepreneurs, to kind of lock in and separate themselves from society for a bit, just work and improve themselves, focus on improving themselves. So I kind of fell into that reasoning as well, and it fueled the self-isolation episodes even further. Because this habit was seen so positively for a long time, probably since I made that video almost 2 years ago, I just kept doing it. I kept self-isolating because I thought it was good for me and for the other people around me. It was almost like this is for the greater good type of situation where they would thank me, my friends would thank me for disappearing for a bit because I would come back better. And I almost framed it that way as well, where I said, I really need to work on myself right now. See you in 3 months. And that was horrible to them. That was horrible to them because it made them feel like they could not comfort me enough to stay in contact with them while I was supposedly working on myself. What really convinced me that self-isolation was very unhealthy was seeing how it affected my friends negatively and also prioritizing my friends way more in my life. I honestly used to put success for my future and things like that above my friends. I thought it was normal to do that. I thought it was good for me to do that because that's what I've been told my entire life. You should make sacrifices for your friends. You should always put yourself first, always focus on school and work first. Your friends are secondary, your friends are tertiary. But after reflecting, I realized I do not align with that. I will always put my relationships first in my life because I think that they're the most important and integral thing that I could ever have. If I were to have an interview with a job that could potentially earn me $1 million a year, or my friend really needed me, then I would blow off the interview. It has truly come to that point where, from my episodes of self-isolation, I've learned to really, really prioritize my friendships because I really do care about them and love them very deeply. It's one of the main things that roots me in my life. I don't know other way to phrase it. Root is nice. They are the beacon of my energy, I guess. But the one thing that helped me the most in completely erasing self-isolation practices was changing my standards, because that was the root cause. Now, instead of wanting to be the best for my friends, I changed it to I want to be the best I can for my friends. And that's also allowed me to be vulnerable with them in all aspects. I can actually talk about them with things I'm struggling with. And upon further reflection, I think that makes the relationship much, much deeper, because then you're showing them every part of you. And I think that when you're showing somebody every part of you without leaving anything out, then you're actually friends with them. I think complete vulnerability, honestly, with exception for boundaries, of course, is what makes the friendship actually real. If you're lying, you're concealing, you're hiding, then are they friends with you, or are they friends with this mask that you have put on? That is how I view my relationships now. I really, really value vulnerability more than anything else. Just to have a bit of structure in my mind as well, I've told myself I am not allowed to skip a hangout, no matter what. No matter what comes in the way, I need to prioritize it. If it's scheduled, it's prioritized. Another thing is, I do value being alone. I think being alone warrants a lot of healthy reflection and actually bettering myself in a non-self-isolation, hatred type of way. I also need to recharge. I generally do lean towards introversion as well. But now I make a distinction between being in solitude, wanting to be in solitude, wanting to reflect, and self-isolating. If I'm self-isolating, it's because of insecurity, and if I'm in solitude, it's because I want to connect to nature, or I want to think in circles for a little bit and eventually have a conclusion, or I want to make a funny YouTube video like this. These forms of solitude are not bad. I've always said I don't think being alone is bad at all. Intrinsically, I think the reason behind your being alone is what's essential to consider. So I have not self-isolated in a very long time, and now I have 2 wonderful best friends, and because I'm so vulnerable with them, I feel excited to talk to them, as one naturally would. I don't feel this urge, this insecurity anymore about these standards, because I've also unrooted those. I know that those standards were originally not even mine. those standards are externally constructed and they're put upon everybody. So it is my choice whether I put them on myself or not. I also think it's very reactive of people to put external standards upon themselves, like those things I was mentioning earlier, being attractive, being intelligent, being the main two. I think that if you want to live intentionally and not constantly reactive, like you're just a piano key making a sound whenever it's touched, like everything is almost pre-programmed and predictable, then you'd really value choosing which standards you actually want to put upon yourself and which standards you actually think are important. And so, I mean, I've believed that for quite a while, and that's why the self-isolation itself eventually broke down, because I no longer held the standards that I was insecure about. Now that I have standards for myself, I never get insecure about them because they're my standards. They're always things that I know I'm working towards in my own time and I'm slowly learning from. And I mean, I say this all the time, but being intentional and deliberate are very important to me. And I think that applying those external standards are probably the most reactive thing that you can do. And, you know, I don't really like the idea of that at all, so the self-isolation broke down naturally. But yeah, shout out to my two best friends. I love them very much. Alright, bye-bye.